Hi, this is Gary Gold, Executive Vice President with Hilton and Highland. And last year I sold the Playboy Mansion for over $100 million. And it was the largest sale ever in the history of Los Angeles. One of the few homes in the United States that ever sold for over $100 million. And one question I get all the time is, who would buy a $100 million house? Now the short answer is the guy who really can't afford the $200 million house. But the long answer is how someone goes about and buys a $100 million house, with a few exceptions, is really no different than any of us how we go out and buy a house. Someone just doesn't go out and go, I want to spend $100 million. They go out and they're looking for what they want. And they will buy, as long as the market bears that value, they're willing to buy that. Now, $100 million houses have taken a long time. There was a time, like when the Playboy Mansion sold in 1971, it was the first house to ever sold for over $1 million in Los Angeles. And it was the same question: who would spend $1 million on a house? And then I remember, $10 million houses became like the thing. And then 10 became, the new $10 million home became 20. And then it became 30. So first of all, it's a progression, but the market really will bear it. There's places like in Tokyo that they're getting prices for condos that you just can't even believe, that make what we're doing cheap. If you're a billionaire, and that's who would buy a $100 million house, you've got to do something with your money. And so you've got to take a position and put it somewhere. And often they will diversify it into a lot of different things. But even if you do nothing, if you have it sitting in bonds or you have it sitting in the bank, that's taking a position. And if you make the wrong call, it will cost you a lot of money. So these people with this type of wealth accumulated have to do something with it. And buying a house like that has a lot of advantages. First of all, people who become billionaires are people who live large, really went for it. So they've got the personality and the mindset to do something like that. The other thing is, sometimes people think it's a good buy. They make this purchase and they're used to dealing in these really high number items. And they've bought a lot of things in their life where people thought they were crazy, and then they turn around and sell it to someone else for $150 million. Also, these people are used to buying very expensive items and taking positions on businesses and stock and investments and all types of, and boats and all kinds of things that the typical person would not be comfortable with it, but that's why they're a billionaire. If you have a $2 million house in Los Angeles, it's, I guess if you're in the outskirts of Detroit where houses are 50 grand, or in the suburbs a nice house is 200 grand, 2 million sounds crazy. So everything's also relative. But a $2 million house in Los Angeles is no big deal. So interesting enough, when people have a budget of $100 million, they still don't necessarily get everything they want. How people, no matter if it's $1 million house or a $500,000 house or a $100 million house, is they have a set of things that they want in a house. And they go out and they have usually a budget. Even if it's $100 million, they've got a budget what they want to spend. And then they go out and buy the best thing on the market available to them. And if you want a certain thing and $50 million doesn't get you that house, it gets you less in some very rarefied area like Bel Air or Holmby Hills or Beverly Hills. If 50 isn't getting what you want and you've got the money, then that position, if you're that type of person, is very easy. And finally, the one factor, you do have to have that person that's driving that deal. Someone's not going to spend $100 million unless somebody can prove that there's a market there. You've got to make that market. And sometimes with something like that, the market didn't exist. And you've got to somehow connect the dots where someone can triangulate and corroborate and come up with, yeah, this is worth $100 million. And I don't care how great a house is, if that can't be accomplished somehow, and it's usually through a really good broker, if that can't be accomplished, someone will not take that leap where they're the guy who buys the most expensive house. This is a world I've been buying and selling homes in for a long time for clients. So if you have any needs or questions or comments, or you'd like some help knowing about this particular market if you find yourself in it, leave a comment below and I'd be happy to reply. Thanks a lot.